shenanigans, guys. Time for another video. And even though some people regard this as a dead horse, I'm going to talk about it because people should not forget it. Just like September 11th, and people still remember it. The shit that happened in 2020, it should be remembered. And I'm making this video also to tell people why you shouldn't be afraid of people who, under the guise of protest, committing or inciting mass intimidation. You can call it. I'm going to tell you how you can define it as violent innuendo to intimidate citizens, and how you can define it as terrorism, how you can define it as an insurgency. I'm telling you how you should be able to have the right to define a true insurrection or terrorism, and anybody else just fucking try to throw Trump in my face or patriots in my face. Nope. Ain't gonna throw that shit in my face because that's not what it's all about, and I ain't even one of those. And this video also for you if say you happen to lean left, but you don't, you ain't with that shit on the radical left that goes too far, or if you're on, maybe on the right, you don't care for the radical right. But this is more against the radical left. But I also call on the relatively decent people on the left, which I actually think there's relatively decent people on the left that should depart from or condemn the far left and separate themselves from the far left. This video is for you, but and I'll talk about this to prevent shit like this from happening again. Anybody who, and you want to define what true protest is. Protest is not, for example, because some cop did, bunch of people going in massive numbers, marching in streets, blocking traffic, and also there was vandalizing going on in places that had nothing to do with a particular incident in the city that's way in the states, another state somewhere. That's what happened in 2020. And there were ones too, I admit too, that didn't intend for stuff like that to happen, but unfortunately, when there's something in massive numbers going on, I think some people do it on some of it's not meant to happen, but a lot of people, I believe, were doing it on purpose too. They weren't telling, crackheads and drug users and stoners not to join in, but they were letting them join in. But I'm getting to this, what really should be done. First of all, you shouldn't be afraid of these people, and you hope it never happens again, and how you prevent this from happening again. And anybody who does have legit beefs against people like police. I had a run-in with cops one time in a town I used to live in, and I don't condone what happened in 2020 either. But I'm going to tell you that you have the right to go to your state representatives and write to your state representatives and your governors to make a law to better define an insurgency and to properly define a protest. Laws that keep people from taking protests into towns that had nothing to do with it, and to discourage people from intimidating citizens that had nothing to do with it in large numbers on the streets and blocking traffic when they're trying to go to their jobs, which a lot of these people didn't have jobs, and they were going and doing this. There should be charges brought up against people that are promoting anything that resembles a riot, anything that disrupts people driving to their jobs, disrupts society. Anything, I think, that can be defined and deemed as an attack on the civilized world should be discouraged. And I think people should go to their write their state representatives, senators, any kind of people, attorney generals, governors, put the pressure on them. It's like anybody who wants to protest should do it the right way. Anything that is deemed as somebody who, opportunists who want to promote and incite anything that looks like riots or anything to disrupt society should be literally discouraged. It should be not tolerated, and instead of being intimidated. This is for people that should have genuine concern when they're in a nice neighborhood. And what? We don't want this shit to be happening every time some cop does something. It should be done the right way and taken to the Attorney General's office to start with. Stuff in 2020 shouldn't happen. And this shouldn't be regarded as a dead horse, if you will. But there should be laws to properly define a protest and to tell people not to cross lines. And these people that promote this, protest organizers that get money off of people, and if they're using money, whether they're using money to do it or using propaganda to recruit people to go march on the streets, block traffic, or if they had anything to do with vandalism, any special interest group that's even legit, if it gets caught encouraging violence or intimidation or using their money as such, they ought to be warned about it. To be able to keep their non-profit, or if you will, they ought to openly tell their people, okay, thou shalt not block traffic, thou shalt not encourage anybody to destroy property or businesses, or go into streets and neighborhoods to intimidate people, to intimidate citizens, because that looks gangy. That should be discouraged. The reason why that should be discouraged, and nobody should be afraid of those people. When you do something under the guise of protest and you want to expand the meaning of protest to include people that had nothing to do with it, you're literally intentionally creating an innuendo of, you better be scared of us or we might smash your car, or smash your house, or if you're not with us, raising our fist in the air, power to Mr. King in the streets, or whatever it did. Anything that's looks like protest, but it's designed to put people into fear, that's terrorism. You don't need bombs to commit terrorism. Oh, and I think it's hilarious that people that get accused of, or that they want to flag certain people as homegrown terrorism or domestic terrorism for their own vendetta or for their own advantage. Anything that you encourage people to block streets in mass numbers, and if you're any group that's intentionally trying to make citizens afraid for their cars, their property, an innuendo, trying to be an army, an innuendo of possible violence to try to make people feel afraid, they should be flagged, and it should be discouraged. And any people discreetly or any kind of a way using money that they collect for people to try to pay people to incite such things should be warned by government or authorities or officials that you get caught doing this, we'll warn you once, we'll suspend or revoke your non-profit, your right as an organization. We'll freeze that money you're collecting off of people, and we will look into your finances that way. If you're using money that's what needs to be told to these people. If you're using money to pay people to recruit protesters who you're maybe encouraging to, like anybody who walks streets and places in towns that have nothing to do with a particular incident, say with police, that's nowhere near the town where it took place, There's no good intention for that other than intimidation and the innuendo of terrorism and innuendo of trying to frighten or intimidate citizens. That's what really should happen. People that are concerned about their children, their pets, their property. Nothing wrong with protest, but if it's not done the right way, like people are picking. Well, there were things in the past about like unions way back in the day that got violent that way too. That should be made illegal too. Anything that people were inciting people in large numbers, that should be red flagged as intimidation. And the reason why I say this is a lot of citizens, they don't like the innuendo of intimidation. They hate it. You think they're going to be scared of you? And matter of fact, I think if you really, the rights of anybody, like because of their race, it's not a bad thing. But if it starts looking like, mass intimidation, like, for example, if I wanted to have an organization that wanted to protect people of other races or different things, I'd be concerned that too much of that shit would turn people away from the cause, don't you think? Well, I've seen a few news clips of certain people that did say things to that effect. You know what I mean? But yeah, people, hey, if you have friends and neighbors that happen to be of color that go to churches and all that, tell them to support the black YouTubers that are against all that shit. And there's plenty of them too. The ones that the special interest groups and the protest-loving groups and the far left crackhead punks, the ones that they don't like, that they're you got to support. Tell them to support the black YouTubers who the far left is trying to get banned. You know what I mean? A black gentleman that's the ex-police officer. You don't have to agree with every word they say. I think Modern Renaissance Man, Young Ripa, he was mostly involved in comics and things like that. He does videos on that, but he's known to be outspoken about certain things. Yeah, this is what you do so nobody can accuse you of being a member of Aryan Nations or Ku Klux Klan or shit like that. The right way to do it is you got to spread around and share the videos of black YouTubers that don't put up with that shit. There's a lot of people of color too that don't want their towns damaged, and they don't want to feel like that they're going to be bullied into a particular cause just because somebody else that's the same color as them got shot by a cop and see their town destroyed, or they don't need to be made to feel like if they don't join up in that stuff like they have to, or feel threatened that they're going to be ostracized or shunned by their people. That don't need to be done either. But that's what needs to be done. Nobody needs to be or should be scared of people like this. Hopefully this shit don't happen again. But yeah, when you see things get to, even before 2020, I've seen all kind of YouTube videos about these vandalisms in Portland and Seattle and all that, and Antifa punks and shit like that, and mayors and different people that were just allowing it to happen. Hey, anybody, yeah, and that's another thing too. Anybody that's like a mayor or any local politician that is allowing a city to go to hell and encourage and stuff like that, the citizens should have the right to go higher up and report it to some higher heads of state or anything that you have to. That's what needs to be done. Yeah, anybody who tries to incite what they did in mass numbers, it's not protest. It's mass terrorism and intimidation, and it's actually the groundwork for insurgency, and it's basically a cover for an insurgency, and it's an attempted insurgency, even though you say it's over right now. That's how some of these people do it. They figure, oh, it's over right now, and What they want you to do is be afraid. Oh, it might happen again, so you better comply with demands and be told what to do. Actually, no, not at all. You need to be telling people, if this happens again, we're going to be writing to our politicians higher up and encouraging them and petitioning for it to not that happen. This is what needs to happen. So instead, they want you to be afraid that it might happen again, and they want you to shudder in and be afraid. And what you should be doing is saying, no, we're not going to be afraid. We're going to go up somewhere and encourage your local and higher up politicians and heads of state to put the pressure on these groups that are inciting this stuff. Anything that goes beyond protest is a cover for insurgency. What they want to do is say it's over, and we say it's over now, and some cop gets accused of doing something again, or some cop does something again wrong, and they do this shit again. They want you to get used to that and be afraid, and in time, if they're allowed to do this more than one time, over and over again, make people afraid for their business and their property, it's basically the groundwork. They're testing the grounds for insurgency, and in some cases, some of these people should be looked into, if not charged, at least looked into and investigated for conspiracy to overthrow the government, even at a local level. An insurgency doesn't have to be a insurgency in the entire the entire country. It's like people start out as at a local level. Hey, you can be your town or county, not even state, your local town or county. If a bunch of people are doing too much shit, you can argue that somebody is inciting an insurgency on a local small level to try to work their way up and try to keep doing more shit than they can get away with. And how it becomes terrorism when citizens are, as an innuendo, if you either join us or we're going to march in your streets in places that have nothing to do with it, and with an attitude like a run thing. That's not protest. That is terrorism and intimidation, plain and simple. And nobody's going to fucking tell me different. And in the long run, too, not that you want to see that happen, I said, but a lot of citizens do not, even the least aggressive ones, do not like to be told what to do or to be intimidated or threatened either. And then one day there'll be a straw that breaks the camel's back. And I definitely don't encourage or advocate or condone any such things, but the shit could happen and it can turn into a hailstorm. I'm surprised that pushback didn't happen at a more violent level than it did. You know, I ain't wishing that on anybody. I don't advocate it, but say that happens again, people will get tired of that shit in larger numbers. I mean, yeah, and you don't want to underestimate anybody that wants to protect their kids or their pets or their property. I mean, anything that looks intimidating crowds like in the street. And I'm not even saying anybody should push back with violence, but to avoid such things before thinking about such things, I'm telling you, that's what you do. You get a bunch of your friends and your neighbors together, and people that own businesses, and you petition your, you go, like, send up copies of it to your attorney generals, to your governors, you know, and your mayors and people like that. And nobody's saying anybody to not protest, but that's what needs to be done, because certain local politicians, like, they know some of this, what happened in 2020, you don't want to see it happen again, because that's an attack on the civilized world, and it's an attack on the taxpayer. If you got this far in this video, that's why your state politicians, local politicians, and your presidents and your senators, should be on the ball with this and considering that, because anything that's a threat, that an innuendo of violence, that anything that destructs businesses who pay taxes, they lose tax money, and plus it actually costs money to prosecute these people too. But if you can't stop it with police force, and that kind of failed miserably in 2020. That doesn't work because, yeah, there'll be pretty soon this damn UN will actually be putting sanctions on this country. Oh, they would love that. So to avoid that, which you do with these people, you can't do it with riot squads or police forces, or I'd rather not see it with citizens actually resisting with violence, but you have the right to protect your children, your family. The way it should be done first is you tell these people, you get caught encouraging anything like I said, you should get your privileges for your nonprofit, your money frozen, your money frozen from your whatever nonprofit, which whatever you call it, if it's that money is being used to incite such things, should be frozen, and you should be warned that you do this again, and you tell your people to not do this, or you're going to get your privileges for your organization, if it's non-profit, revoked. Lose your privileges, that's it. Yeah, we'll lose your privileges, and if not seize, freeze that until you these people should be required to publicly denounce vandalism with their lips right on TV. If they hesitate in any way to publicly denounce any kind of like public vandalism, smash and grabs, and anything like that, if they refuse to do so, they really shouldn't be allowed to protest if they're using any money for any organization. Like I said, it's not protest when it turns into intimidating people in places that had nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? Even though 2020, it's like there and gone. But this is how you prove something could be an insurgency under the guise of protest, and this is how you prevent it from happening again. I mean, it all depends on the owners of businesses and citizens that are in nice towns, and people of color who don't tolerate that shit, people in the black churches, if able to believe in God, discourage things like this, and if anything is, if you accuse the police or of anything, it should be done the right way to begin with, going to the Attorney General's office, and anything that happened in 2020 should have never happened. But and then when I end this video, anything beyond the minimal standards of a protest that spills into other towns, automatically it should be looked into as an insurgency and investigated as an insurgency, and even investigated as conspiracy to overthrow, if not overthrow the government. Not at a no, I'm not saying, even if it's not an intention to overthrow the government at a federal level, they should be looked into as conspiracy to overthrow a town, like local government, to a certain point. At least looked into to discourage it. You know what I'm saying? Anything that looks gangy and that wants to walk around streets like it's some kind of army and then recruit people to intimidate citizens, like I said, it's up to no good, and it's completely wrong, and it should be called out, plain and simple.